Hello and welcome to the Irish Hunting Podcast, the no bullshit podcast for the outdoor enthusiasts. If you're into hunting, fishing, fine wines and even finer foods, you've come to the right place. So pull up a chair.
Welcome back, folks, to this week's episode of the Irish Hunting Podcast. This week, we sit down with Mr. Richie Delaney to discuss the hunting of the most elusive and majestic bird in wild game hunting, the woodcock. If woodcock hunting is your thing, then this is the episode for you. Enjoy, folks. Richie Delaney, you're welcome to the Irish Hunting Podcast. It's great to have you down. Thanks a million for coming the whole way down here at, I think it's nearly 10:30 at night. I'd say this could be the last thing now you'd want travelling long distance with kids at home and so on. So thanks a million for coming down, pal. Really appreciate it.
No bother at all. No, delighted to be here. Look, it's great to get the message out and get the airtime to let lads hear what's going on in the world of woodcock.
Brilliant. Little bit about yourself, Richie. Your official title, you're with the NARGC. Your official title is?
Research officer.
Research officer for the NARGC. And how did you get involved? Firstly, I suppose we'll go right back. Hunting. How did you get involved? Where did it all start?
From a young age. It didn't matter what it was, if it was lamping with dogs or, till I could get a gun, it was terriers and lurchers and anything I could, springers after rabbits, you name it. And then once I got a gun in my hand, then it all changed. I got rid of the terriers, the lurchers, and it was all springers and pointers and on that after that, but it was from the very start.
Hunting in the family?
Yeah.
Generational. So, and you're from the Midlands, as we call it.
From the heart of the Midlands. I'm on the Tip Offaly border from my sins.
Yeah.
Tip, by the way.
Tip. Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Yeah, which side of the border? That's very important. Very important. You've good populations of deer down there. Good populations of pheasant, and we're going to be talking about the star of the show tonight later on. Woodcock. You're involved in gun club down there as well?
Yeah, I'm in 2 or 3 gun clubs down there. All going well, thankfully.
All going well.
Yeah.
How's shooting going this season?
It's okay. Look, our biggest problem, I suppose, at the minute is habitat loss.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of the dairy prairies now. We've good land and we're getting swallowed up by dairy. That's the biggest problem. Yeah. But look, we have still good old populations. We've the mountains near us for deer, and we have pheasant, we have woodcock, we have duck. We kind of have... We have a good area, to be honest.
You have a good mixed bag, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of woodcock, how did you first get involved in hunting woodcock? Was it a thing that you would have seen prevalent back when you started hunting? Or is it something that kind of, as the years went by?
Yeah, I would have found it, when I started, it was all pheasant. And then, you'd meet probably a few woodcock, and you loved, obviously, woodcock hunting, but I found years ago when I started that I wouldn't have met as many woodcock in the Midlands.
Okay.
But I find in the last number of years like that the numbers have come up. So like my hunting has shifted.
Yeah.
Before it was predominantly pheasant shooting. If I met a woodcock it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But now it has gone the opposite way. I'm hunting woodcock, and if I meet a pheasant that's grand too.
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of switched.
Yeah.
So probably contrary to what would you say, the narrative out there, in terms of woodcock being, I think we're going to talk about it here, and on certain lists is considered red listed and so on and so forth. Contrary to that, and we're seeing it as well on the groups and with people messaging. We've been trying to get this podcast about woodcock done over the last number of seasons, and obviously we're right in the middle of it now, so no better time. But we're finding from all the messages, a lot of lads are meeting a lot of woodcock now, compared to years ago. As you rightly said, you would have we would have heard from lads meeting, the small numbers, but regular. But now higher numbers, meeting a lot higher numbers. Obviously not. They're a pretty elusive bird to shoot. They'll test your skill. So yeah, I only today I think I read a lad met 12, 14 woodcock and shot 3. So meeting good numbers, which is brilliant to see.
Yeah, and like this year seems to be a unique year. The migration was a lot later than normal. Like the migration tends to follow the weather, and we've had very mild weather, and Scandinavia and, the likes of them areas, the Baltics, where most of our birds come from, like they've had really mild weather as well. And the problem was, without the snow and stuff there, the birds just don't move. They take their time. They only move when they have to move, and then when it's time to go, they go. Like, and in the last week, 10 days, you've seen the population go up. The migration has came.
Just touching on that, I suppose, for people that don't know, we have our own kind of population of native woodcock here. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have our own natives.
Do we have a kind of a rough figure or an estimate on roughly how many we have native?
We have not a rough figure, we have a very good figure. Thanks to Dr. James O'Neill, we actually done a rodent count, and as you tipped on a few minutes ago, in Ireland, the woodcock is classed as a red listed bird. But the reason it's classed as a red listed bird was because the methods of counting. The woodcock is a whole different ball game. You can't just walk into a field and count how many woodcock are there, because they're hiding. They're in the woods, they're in the cover. So the only real way to do it was the rodent count, which was done. James organised it in conjunction with NARGC, people from Birdwatch Ireland, and anybody that really wanted to do it could do it if they wanted to get involved. Now, the findings of that were significant. The reason that they're significant now, they will be published, hopefully in the next month or two. James's paper will be actually published, and it'll be there for everybody to see. But at the minute, it's not quite finished. But the findings, the reason that it's significant was because the UK and Britain had a bit of a trouble in the last year where they were trying to stop woodcock shooting. So what they done was they went and they done the rodent counts as well. And their results were, I think, just over 50,000 birds is what they counted in all of the UK and Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So that's resident birds that are staying in the UK and breeding. We have done it here through James, and we have got a population of over half of their population. I'm not going to go into direct figures yet.
So give or take 25, 30,000 is ballparks.
Ballpark figure, yeah. But what we have to remember on this is, like the Republic of Ireland, we call it, is land size compared to the UK is only about less than a quarter or a fifth of the size. Yeah. So we have over half of their population in a fifth of their size, which is a significant number. Like, if you were to ask me, do I think it should be red listed? I don't. I think definitely it should be reduced to amber at a minimum.
Yeah.
Obviously, caution has to be kept. They have to be tracked and monitored.
Yeah.
But it definitely shouldn't be a red listed bird with the likes of them figures. The problem we had was it was coming off of figures that were done, in the early 2000s and that, through the Bird Atlas. Again, there was no actual proper methodology of counting done. It was pretty much walk around the fields and see what you're seeing.
And in terms of the rodent, explain to us about how that you spoke about there, the rodent count, is that?
The rodent count was done over the breeding season in the summer. So what it was there was areas picked all over Ireland, certain maps and that. So the idea was to spread it out geographically as best we could. And what you done was you go to this wooded area that you pick 3 evenings. And what you do is you stand, you look and you listen. So when you're in a bit of a clearing or that, what you'll see is the woodcock flying over. The rodent is their mating call. Okay. So they'll fly over and they make a squeak and they make a grunting call as they fly over. So while you're standing there, you're counting how many you see fly over and how many you hear.
Okay.
And the whole idea of that is they fly around calling and calling. The females are on the ground, and then the females will come out. And you might have read, maybe some people have read it, some haven't, but the white on the end of their tail is actually one of the brightest white colours that is actually possible. So what happens is the female runs out of cover, she flashes her tail up as the male is flying over, and he sees the flash of the white tail and he comes down to the female.
And that's her mate.
And that's the mate. But after he does that, he'll go on again and he'll rode for another while, and there might be more females in the area. They're like a pheasant. They're not monogamous pairs. They'll spread out.
They have a good old life.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So, there's, I suppose, and that's the reason we wanted to have you on. It's obviously an elusive. It's a majestic bird. It's held in high esteem in hunting communities around the world for that very reason. There's not a huge amount of knowledge about him apart from the knowledge that's probably passed down generationally and so on and so forth. And obviously due to your research and James O'Neill and the NARGC pushing this, we wouldn't know half of what we know. And I think we're going to discuss some of the figures now coming up. In terms of James, when is that paper due out? Is that due out over the next couple of months?
His thesis is finished. He is a doctor of science now, so he has his doctorate done on this. He just has to adjust the papers and turn them into an actual paper to be published. So I'm hopefully in the next, by early in the new year, it should be done. He's working on it as we speak.
And there's a significance as well. There's another couple of things that the NARGC are actively promoting. And we've all heard about the bag returns, wing returns, the ringing and so on. And we've before the podcast commenced here, you were showing me some maps, some really cool maps, and the benefits of actively participating. And it's not all about what you shoot, it's about what you're meeting, what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And tell us a little bit about the benefit of actually recording that type of data, Richie.
Yeah, with this we can do so many things. Like the sightings are more important than our actual bag return, because we can, if we have enough of sightings in enough of areas, what we can actually do is we can extrapolate the data and we can get a population estimate in a certain area. Like if we wanted to pick, we'll say Kildare as a county, we can see how many were seen in a certain area over a certain amount of time, and we can extrapolate out to the amount of members and get a rough guide of a population. In the area. It's going to be open to scrutiny all the time, but it'll give us rough guides on everything. There's so much we can learn when we go back to the likes of the wing data, the aging, we can tell if it's a good breeding season, if it's a bad breeding season. The isotope data can give us an idea of where the birds came from. Or ringing data shows us where they come from. But the big thing on it is we need people to feed into it. We can never have enough data. We have come on in leaps and bounds in the last number of years because of the stuff we're doing. The NARGC are also involved in a European-wide group called FAMBO, where it's all the different Palearctic countries are involved that have woodcock coming to them. And their studies and our studies combined together is it just shows a map of what's happening with the woodcock all across Europe.
And in terms of, you touched on it there, but the migratory population, where do they predominantly come from?
From what we read, Scandinavia, Ireland is supposed to have the biggest population coming from Scandinavia, but Russia and all across the Urals as well would feed into it. Now, we have the isotope data done. We collected 670 odd wings 2 years ago, and they went for isolytical analysis, and we have the results back, but it has to be compiled into a report. And the results from that should tell us if it was a resident bird, if it was a migratory bird, and rough idea where it comes from.
Okay.
We won't be able to distinguish from Ireland to England, say,
yes,
but we'll be able to distinguish from Scandinavia, Russia, mainland Europe back to Ireland.
Between
so we'll be able to tell
that
they came from either area.
You showed me a little map there and I've taken a couple of screenshots which I'll throw up over the coming days. And there's some really cool, you've ring birds that have travelled huge distances. One of them there over 3,500 kilometres. Is that correct?
3,500 kilometres. Yeah, that was one day. It was actually rang in on the very far side of Russia, nearly on the border with Asia, from the far side of the Ural Mountains, and it made its migration to Ireland. And it's 3,600 kilometres.
And that's 3,600 over. Stays here for a while. Does a little bit of flying and moving and disco dancing when he's here, and then shoots all the way back.
Yeah. A big fact now, as I said, through FAMBO that we have found that this one was the one that actually opened my eyes most. The Estonian Hunting Federation GPS tagged a number of woodcock just to see their migrations and where they go. So one of their birds took off and decided it was coming to Ireland. It was I think just over 3,000 kilometers of a range, because it decided to fly up across the bottom end of Norway and Sweden and then fly down into Denmark, across Scotland, and decided to land in somewhere on the border between Fermanagh and Donegal. And it done it in 3 days. 3 days. Over 3,000 kilometers in 3 days. Recorded, I think 60 mile an hour was the fastest it came. It was an average of about 50 mile an hour flying.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, but like that's where our GPS data tells us, all this data that we can put together paints a picture of what happens.
I think that obviously there's be people listening now, and as I did probably when I heard you speaking about, obviously the bag returns when they initially come in, open to because this is what the antis will say, that's open to misuse and so on.
Yeah.
But the beauty of having the data is it's like I know they use it in the car industry. If a certain fault comes up a certain amount of times, then it's seen as it's a problem part. Same as that. If you've a lad in County Kildare, Anthony Grogan, for argument's sake, and I'm after Maria, I've seen 30 woodcock today, to try and inflate the numbers. You guys can quite quickly sift through that, because you'll have other people in that area saying we're only meeting 3 or 2 or 5, so you can quickly weed out the what would you say, that the people are misusing it by that very methodology. And that brings us to the benefit, or the need for us all. And I spoke about this year, I haven't done it as often as I would have done. I haven't done it at all this year, to my shame. But I had been doing it up to now in previous seasons. So that's going to give me a kick in the backside now to kick on. And I can do last week's when we finish here. But the beauty of, or the benefit of that is, the more data we collect, and the more of this that we can, because it's not just the woodcock on the website. You can go in and you can graze, vermin, snipe, pheasant,
migratory ducks,
pigeon. So we're painting an overall picture. This is not just for the woodcock, which we're talking about today, but this is going to give a huge picture going forward. Obviously, we're under attack from
left, right, and centre.
Left.
Well, like the big thing with our bag returns is, like, we're getting told there's X amount of birds in the country. Like, we know for a fact on one report that came out, there's no ducks in Carlow or Kilkenny. Like, no ducks at all.
At all, yeah.
So like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
So when we done 2 or 3 years ago, we done counts at the end of the season where people were asked to go out, 2 weeks after the season, just go for a walk, count your local ponds, count your local rivers, put in your numbers. So we used that data and we done up flyers on that, and we sent them to people where the people, to read and have a look at this. So they came back and said, where did you get that? Them figures can't be right.
Yeah.
But them figures were right. The problem was their figures were wrong. So that's, when we get, the more data we have, the more we can actually say the birds are there.
Yeah.
Compared to them saying the birds are not there.
Exactly. And it's not good enough anymore for us just to be able to stand up and say, no, you're wrong. We have to have backup to say why they are wrong. Yeah. And this, obviously, the woodcock being predominantly to the forefront of that, has actually proved that they were incorrect. And it's not a case of, we're right and you're wrong. It's more of a case of, well, this is the right way of collect, because we as hunters, out of all the groups that are, I know bird watchers will tell you, we know better. But if you're a hunter, you're going to go across so many different terrains in any one day. Like, I've probably seen it yourself, we've bogland here, you have forestry, you have rivers, streams, hills, mountains, all in pretty short areas. So you're going to come across such a range of wildlife, compared to, say a bird watcher will go into a certain area and might sit up there for, the couple of hours waiting on the perfect shot or the bird to come along. So we're in an ideal situation to record this data. And I think we should, if it's one thing that from tonight, hopefully get the message out there for people to do their bag returns, if they can do the ring returns.
Yeah, anything, the wing returns, and like we do the woodcock wings, keep one wing from each bird that you get. So we can do the age analysis on it. As I said, it's what we're doing is trying to, work out the difference between juveniles and adults. And what we do is build up a trend over a number of years that we have, what you're looking for is lots of juveniles coming. And then when you have lots of juveniles, that it's a good breeding season. They're not short stopping. All these things you can actually turn around and say, well, that's not happening because we're getting the birds. And that's all it is. It's pretty much trends over a number of years to paint a picture. That's all. Now we do it with migratory duck as well. So if you get your shovelers, your teal, your widgeon, if you can keep one wing off them, make sure and put them in the freezer as quick as you can. Woodcock you can leave, put them in a mesh sack, let them dry. That doesn't matter. The woodcock won't matter. They won't rot, but the duck wings will.
Yeah, and obviously then with that data, as you rightly said, if there's a season where there's juveniles are not plentiful, then we'll know that in the following season, then we'll all have to adjust our habits, because we as hunters don't want to see the obliteration of any species. So if that data is very, very, it's vital, I suppose. If there's a really bad season or a really harsh season on any one animal, then we can curtail or maybe tweak that season periodically and then go back at it again when we have the data to reverse it.
Absolutely, yeah. And the best case in point for that was the Danish Hunters Federation done a study a couple of years ago, and what they've done was their season starts earlier than ours because they're waiting on the migration to pass them, say, before they come to us. So they have a short window. And what they've done was they collected the wings from the final 2 weeks in October. And that would have been the start time of their migration before they came to us. So what they done was they aged them, and then what they done was the juveniles, they decided to DNA them. Because they hadn't got the bodies, they couldn't tell male from female. So they went to DNA. And in them 2 weeks, they realised that 36% of them were juvenile females. So that 2 weeks, you were taking out 40% of your breeding stock. So what they decided then was, we know that the young females are moving first. We'll tell our members, try and curtail your shooting in that time. It's all about sustainable hunting. And if you know that, Jesus, well, I'm shooting next year's breeding stock, I'll leave it a week later before I go after woodcock. And then you're probably taking, more males or whatever, which is fine. And it's the same in the UK. The UK have went on a journey where they've decided that they used to start in the middle of October shooting the woodcock. And the problem they had was the migratory birds weren't in. So they would have been after a lot of their resident birds.
Resident stock. Yeah.
So they realised, well, that could become a problem. So what they've done is they've shifted and said, lads, don't start shooting until November or even December if you want, and wait for the migratory birds. And then we're not taking from our own stock. You're not shooting yourself in the foot, We have to hunt sustainably. We want the quarry to be there for us to hunt.
In terms of the breeding season of the woodcock, when is the main mating season?
It would kick off normally, say April, May. It would kick off. Weather dependent again, like everything. March to May, I suppose, will be kind of peak time. Coming into June, then and then it would die off again to be finished at that stage. But as I said, it is like it's a good time. If anyone has a bit of time, go to a nice forested area, pick a clearing and just wait and see. You'll be amazed. Like I think I put up 1 or 2 videos there of, say, woodcock passing over, and you'll hear they have a croak like a frog as they're coming over, and that's their call. Brilliant. And they have a squeak like a mouse. So they'll do both calls as they're flying circles. And and if you're lucky enough, you'll get to see some of our resident snipe, and they do a drumming sound. It's where they beat their wings and that as they're flying, and it sounds like someone drumming coming, So like these are all the small things you don't get to see in the shooting season, but you get to see in the off season.
They're creatures of habit. We discussed that just before we came on.
Absolutely,
they seem to be, and you've data to back this up. They seem to go back to generally the same areas all the time.
Yeah, they like our ringing shows us that, where we have birds that were rang in a certain area where they could have been shot probably in that same area 3 or 4 years later, which they would be within 1 kilometre or 2 kilometres of the area they were originally rang.
Right.
And chances are, if we go by the dates that they were rang, it would have been midwinter, so chances are they were migratory birds. There's because we'd have a bigger population, there's a chance that they're
a fair chance, yeah.
So chances are they went back to their country and came back 2 or 3 times, and then just happened to be unlucky one at a time.
Within a kilometre or 2 of the same
area. We actually have one bird that was shot in the same field it was rang 4 years later.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's a fascinating piece of that. I think the oldest woodcock is 15.
15 years is the oldest recorded bird, yeah. Now, it was a number of years ago it was recorded, but 15 years of age.
And that is some amount of mileage on that bird, considering some of them do up to, 7,000 kilometres a year?
Yeah,
roughly?
Russian birds, you'd be talking about 7,000 kilometres. So, like, if he done that 15 times...
That's a lot.
That's a lot of mileage.
Yeah. If I was him, I would have stayed here for a while, but that's...
Take a holiday.
Take a holiday. And the average lifespan, Richie, in terms of
5 to 6.
5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
So a good lifetime. Not. I know that the pheasant is probably a lower lifespan than that on average. So they're a pretty tough bird.
Yeah.
Well, they'd have to be to do the distances that they're talking about.
Yeah. Like, they're elusive. That's the difference. They stay to themselves. They do their own thing in the forest, and that's all. Like, like as I said already, the populations was a big thing. Like, an estimated population of 15 or 16 million on your Eurasian woodcock. There's a lot of birds out there. Yeah. Contrary to our red listing, the IUCN, which would be the the European equivalent, have them down as a bird of least concern.
Well, there you go. And look, we're not trying to, I suppose, get into I think I've had my share of going at me there during the week. I put up a little post about our friends in the Green Party, and obviously it's been a bad week for them. But what we don't want is, it's them versus us. We never wanted that in the first place. No. This is more of a collaborative approach, and a more honest approach, I think, is the honest, not the right word. I suppose a more in-depth, descriptive look at the real numbers on the ground. It benefits nobody. In my view, you're probably the same. I think there's some huge conservation projects around the country. Anyone who thinks that hunting hasn't got a part to play in those projects is living underneath a rock. We all need to stand up, and we talked about going around to schools and so on and so forth. We need to understand nature is, by its very definition, it can be cruel at times. If there's no way that we're talking about the corncrake, there's no way corncrake projects can actively be. I think I've seen a thing on Facebook. I think they tried one of their conservation projects. I think it was 70 birds somewhere over in the UK were released in an area, and I think it was minimal the amount that survived. They had no active vermin control, and they just thought it was a matter of just throwing them out, and it was literally like lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah. Predator control is a huge part of all this conservation. Even the likes of your woodcock, like the breeding birds here, they still have to have their nests. They still have to fledge. Like, you're trapping your grey crows, your magpies, you're shooting your foxes. It's needed no matter what.
Yeah. Now more so than ever. I think we talked off air. You've dairy down beside you. We've a lot of monocrop here. As you probably tell, lovely flat ground, and thousands and thousands of pounds acres of open ground, and ditches being filled in, hedges being cut back to within an inch of their life, and taken out in a lot of areas. So it leaves that they're trying to survive in far what would you say, more exposed areas than ever before.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, vermin, if we can see them, vermin can see them. I've a couple of little woodcock down just at the end of my lane here, and I actively control the vermin here. When I say actively, and no matter how much on top of it I seem to get, it's just like an influx. And funny enough, I spotted one last year down there on the terminal. I was out foxing, and I seen a woodcock down there. So it's great to see, but I suppose again we have to reiterate the vermin control, and that's the beauty of, I think, the NARGC run vermin control competitions throughout the year. And this all feeds into, I suppose, what we're trying to actively preserve our own population here as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Difference between males and females. We spoke about the tail. Is that the only difference? Size?
No, the tail is the same on both of them. They both actually have the white flashes.
Tail. Okay.
Yeah, they all have the same. No, they look the same. To look at, if you have two birds in your hand, you don't know whether they're male or female. The only way to actually do it is to actually open them up and look for the...
So there's no color difference. There's no plumage difference.
No, they're all variable. They all look the same, but they can have different traits on it. Yeah. But there's no actual way of telling male from female. There is lads saying that, the length of their beak and this can tell a difference, but it's not actually proven. So
okay.
From what everything that everyone is saying, the only real way to do it is either DNA or actually open the bird and you'll see the internals.
It's a scientific approach and not the old Irish Ash. Look, I do, but ahead of me was. But and is there any difference then between your Eurasian bird and your
Native Irish? No, they're the exact same birds. They're all Eurasian woodcock. That's it. They all look the same. Like we can tell the differences between a juvenile and an adult from the feathers.
Okay.
Once they molt, they actually have different feathers. So that's why I'm looking for one wing from each bird, that I can actually tell the difference by looking at the wing if it's an adult or a juvenile. That's all. And
to do that, just for people who don't know, lads who are going out over the weekend now and they shoot a couple of woodcock, clip a wing, put it in a bag, put it in a freezer. Do you need to mark it, date it, anything like that?
Yeah, probably as well on if you can. Yeah, and look, like my name and address and the whole lot is all over any of the NARGC literature. So if you want to post them to me directly, anyone I ever get them off, I will try and send them back a letter and let them know, just for your own sake, what you have. If you have, adults or juveniles. I know a lot of people won't want to know, but I know we went to Cork there last year, say the Cork Federation asked us to come down, myself and Pádraig Breen, the game development officer, and we gave a talk on ducks and woodcock and that. And like once I said to people, do you want to come up and I'll show you the differences between them? Like it was amazing, people getting interested.
Yeah.
I suppose the next day you're out shooting, you shoot a woodcock, you go, is this, is it an adult or a juvenile? And you start guessing the differences.
You can never have enough information when it comes to that. Like, and we need to arm ourselves more and more with that. Get on. James O'Neill, I suppose, is doing Trojan work. You're also doing Trojan work. Is there anything in the pipeline further down the line? I know we talked about what's the next step in this, I suppose.
We've done a lot of it, like with the isotopes. We have a lot done on that. That's something that hasn't been done in Ireland before. As I said, just to finalise the report. Ringing has to be done every year. We have a problem that we don't have a big influx of ringers. It seems to be a hard shop to get into. There's 4 years involved in training and stuff to actually do the ringing properly. So we have other people doing ringing for us, the likes of James and that. But that is it just tells us, it shows us the migrations. GPS data we have done before, but I think that's what we will try and do again. Winter population estimates is something that I'm working on as we speak, just that we can come up with a figure of what we think is our winter population.
Yes.
UK have 1.5 million, so we have to figure what ours is.
Where we lie within that.
I'd like to think that we are actually fairly close to it, to be honest, or as good as.
Okay.
Like, we have a huge population of woodcock here. Ireland and the UK are unique. A lot of the birds come here. Because
we've probably the perfect habitat is that with the climate and the habitat. We've a nice. Speaking of which, for this coming from somebody who hasn't done a whole pile of woodcock shooting, if any, and it's more by accident, I come across them. We spoke about that earlier. There's probably a little, what would you say, an area in the Midlands in Ireland that probably doesn't see a whole pile of these for the reasons we spoke about.
Yeah,
flat land and so on. But there does be. I hear lads do shoot a fair share of them. Where do they like to hang out? What do they like to hang out on? What's their food source? What's their go-to?
Yeah, woodcock feed at night. So like every night, believe it or not, the Midlands is brilliant for them for that. So near me, I have the Sleep Bloom Mountains. There's a good population of woodcock in the Sleep Bloom Mountains for the simple reason is we have a lot of agriculture around it. So the birds come out of the trees at night and they love the green fields, the dairy fields with the high nitrates with loads of worms in it. So that is where, if you have any areas of scrub or plantations and you look in the field, the green fields around it with cattle in them, that's normally where they'll be.
That's where they'll be.
So they'll come to them at night, and during the day when you're meeting them in the bogs and in your plantations, they're roosting. So they're sleeping during the day nearly for all the world, feeding all night. That's what they do.
Okay.
They are creatures of habit. They're like your pheasant. They have their favourite roosts They have their favourite fields that they like to feed in. You know, they are a pure creature of habit.
So when you're raising them, you're generally raising them out of roost. That's when you're coming across them.
You're raising them out of roost.
And did a roost high up in the off the ground or generally low? Or
on the ground all the time. On the ground all the time. Yeah.
So they that's again bogs, perfect for loads of cover.
Loads of the ground cover.
And then I actually rose one. My dad rose one 2 weeks ago. And like that on the small little the bottom part of the hedge on a ditch.
Yeah.
And like that, that was probably the first one I'd say I've seen in, I'd say 3 years prior to that. So the 2 and 3 years, I think. There's the difference then. Obviously, we'll just touch on snipe. I know there's not a huge amount of data done on snipe just yet. And I think that's probably planned for maybe down the road. The difference then, the beak on a woodcock is a little bit shorter than snipe, or a little bit longer.
Body wise, the beak would be slightly shorter. The common snipe would have a longer compared to body size.
Body size, yeah.
But like they're completely different birds. The funny part is, like, your snipe stays to your wet ground all the time. You know, the woodcock will feed in normal green fields. The woodcock are odd because they come from the sandpiper family, which live along the beaches and that. But the woodcock decided he's going to live in the forests. You know, it just, that's why they're so cryptic. That's why they're so invasive. It's just they decided that this is where they're happy. The terrain you were asking actually about where they stay, like they don't like heavily coniferous trees, you know, your heavy spruces with very little ground cover. They won't be around them. You know, they like low plantations where they've heavy grass to get in under. Dry ditches, bogland, obviously bracken and all the edges of bogland with sallies and firs, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Anywhere where they're well covered, ash plantations with heavy grass around them, heavy ditches, that's where they'll be. Yeah.
In terms of their beak, why do we know why it's so long?
Digging into the ground.
Yeah,
that's just for feeding pretty much. But like they have receptors and that in the beak that they'll probe around in the ground and they'll feed, a worm moving or that, and bang
on them.
Dinner, yeah.
And I read somewhere, I think, now I'm stand corrected on this, a woodcock's beak is kind of like that, and then a snipe's beak goes slightly in.
It joins more on the end, where a woodcock can kind of open.
It's open on the end. Is that correct? Yeah.
That would be kind of
the general, yeah. And so that's absolutely the receptors. So like a tracking device for worms on the.
You'll see them if anyone ever gets to see it or even see videos. There's a lot of videos on YouTube and that where you'll see them and they'll be probing into the ground and moving side to side. Next minute they'll come on a worm and dinner time.
It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah. But like they're actually a friendly enough bird at times. Like if you ever seen them out hopping around, if you're watching for them or that, like they'll hop around close enough to you. I had to look last year we were actually out and we were actually trying to catch birds. We were trying to catch them to ring, and we were using mist nets at the time, and like we had woodcock land in front of us and like just land on the ground and sit there calling. This was in the road in time.
Wow.
And they're just sitting there croaking away looking at us, 5 feet in front of us, and just look at us going, what's going on here? And then up they go and on they go again,
They are a beautiful looking bird, I have to say. I mean, I know the plumage on a cock pheasant and all is beautiful to look at and so on, but the woodcock is, like we said, I think there is something kind of magical or mythical about them. Like I think, and even more so now that you're after telling me, they just literally, kind of from an evolution point of view, just decided for no really apparent reason, we'll make this a little bit harder on ourselves really, and start going inland and
go to the woods.
Go to the woods.
Yeah. It's completely contradictory to the family, like.
Yeah, brilliant. This year, will you get out hunting a little bit this year? I know you're busy at home at the minute.
I'm busy at home, but look, I still get out a bit, not as much as I would like to. Woodcock is only really kicking off in the last week or two. It has been a late migration this year, so over Christmas now I do plan on doing a good bit.
When in terms of that migration period, then when did it start heading on back? Normally in the March, give or take. Okay.
But for whatever reason, you just seem to tell by the weather. They know when to go. I remember actually the Finnish Hunting Foundation had GPS tag birds as well. And they had, say, one woodcock that kept making his way down as the snow was coming down. He was making his way down towards the coast, and then he stayed on the coast, and he took a couple of days there while it got colder and colder. And the problem was he took too long, he took off, and he was just too weak to make it, you know.
Wow.
He just, where the rest were all gone, the heavy migration was gone, he took his time. He just stayed ahead of the snow all the time. It wasn't good enough, you know.
We're right in kind of peak season now for woodcock from now until the end of the season, essentially.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I suppose, recommendations to hunters, I know this is going to be contentious, and because it's contentious even with pheasant, you know, and every year, and this is not to criticise anyone, because personally everyone knows my view, even when it comes to deer and so on and so forth. Everybody's different, everyone does their thing, and we're not, but for people who are conscious of probably wanting to want to do better for the next generation and so on and so forth. I'll put it that way, right? I'm trying to word it politically without offending anyone, because I know everyone will say, oh, we're fucking entitled to shoot whatever we want to shoot and so on and so forth. And you are, I'm not saying that, but for somebody who's probably conscious of would you recommend kind of bag limits? Would you recommend certain times of year? Like I think we spoke there with Denmark of delaying shooting periods and so on and so forth. Is there anything that a conscientious woodcock hunter can do to try, apart from obviously the wing surveys and so on?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't push bag limits on anybody. But the two words that I would use would be voluntary restraint.
Yeah.
You know, we have to remember they are a migratory bird. We have a good population at the minute, and like in the last number of years, the population is going up that's coming here. But I would always remember that, you know, one bad year, 2010, the frost in 2010, you know, told the tale on a lot of birds. We had, you know, pheasant numbers drop because of the hard weather.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to be conscious all the time. So voluntary restraint will be the word I'd use.
Yeah.
Like, we would, you know, in a good day for us, we could meet, you know, 12 or 14 birds. If I get 2 birds, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And then I'm happy to see the dogs work after that. But I don't, you know, I don't condone any man if they want to shoot. If you meet a good few birds and you're not meeting a lot of birds, by no means, they're a sustainable bird, but we just have to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm not, I'm probably similar to yourself, because I know lads who'd shoot, you know, go out in the first and shoot 5-6 pheasant, and I know people would frown at, you know, say, oh, it should be 2 or 3, wasn't that not enough for shoot? But then those men mightn't shoot for another 2 months, you know what I'm saying?
And conditions are a big thing. Like even with pheasants, if you're in an area where you're releasing a lot of pheasants and there's a lot of pheasants there, obviously you're not doing as much by taking one extra pheasant.
Exactly.
You know, where you're in an area where there's very little pheasants and you try and wipe them out, that's not it. You know, that's not the good thing either. So you have to just...
It's horses for courses, really.
Horses for courses is probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, and I think, look, we can all, probably more so, I think more important from the conversation we're after having, I think, is to try and get them returns in, try and get the data, and try and get some sort of a backup and research. What is your take on the week's events in terms of the green capitulation? I know.
Look, to be honest, yes, I'm happy to see the Greens gone. Being honest, for the simple reason is the Greens kind of bullied through what they wanted to bully through. They done some good work with stuff. They threw money at projects that needed to be done. You know what I mean? Conservation projects and that was great. They bought a couple of new SPAs. You know, it's something new. But I don't think they listened to the rural person of Ireland, and I think that's where they fell on their own sword. You know, and being honest with you, I am happy, and I do hope that we get a good minister over the MPWS, and, you know, this time that we can actually sit down and talk. Because I think, like, that's the one important thing we have. We all need to sit down together. You know, like, we have a relationship with the MPWS. We have a relationship with Birdwatch Ireland. Whether we want it or not, we have it.
Yeah.
We have no choice.
Yeah.
So all these groups need to work together. Like, if we want sustainable hunting, we need to actually work together with these groups that we can, you know, work as a group to get what we need.
Absolutely. And on the other side, then, we have to be very, I think the last couple of weeks have shown collectively what we can do. I know there's the NARGC have what 40,000 was it?
25,000.
But there's 125,000 licensed firearm holders, I think, in the country. So among all the groups and firearms holders and so on, we've a collective pull, and obviously, you know, that infiltrates. You know, I know from my perspective here, you know, Avril would be, my wife would be an advocate of my hunting, and probably similar to your own household. So it's not just the licensed firearm holders; it's their spouses, it's their kids, and so on and so forth.
It's the reach is what the voting counts with.
Absolutely, and I think it's probably if ever has been a display, I think of what we can do, because I know reading messages and emails, and you guys put out a newsletter with a kind of a generic style of email that was being sent to TDs and so on and so forth. We did probably something similar, and we went out to all the locals here. And I have to be honest, I based, for the first time probably in a very long time, my own voting traits were impacted directly upon the emails I was receiving back. It didn't matter about historic party politics. We would have been predominantly Fianna Fáil here, you know, like the generational thing. Who did my father vote for? Fianna Fáil. I vote, you know. But I think there's been a shift now, especially in the hunting communities, especially in rural communities where the Greens, they absolutely, I would agree. I think there was some really cool ideas, really cool projects but they could have been done in a way that was more collaborative, I think. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. And I do agree, like all the hunting community got together on this. Like, I've never seen a community so combined in trying to, you know, tackle their TDs and ask them the questions and look for the answers. I know in our area we've done the same thing, and actually every one of the TDs that actually came out in support of us, they actually got their seats. Yeah. So like all our TDs in our area are in support of what we do. So like what it does is it opens a door where we can go back and talk to them and say, listen, you know, fair play, you
said you're going to do something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, it happened all over the country. Every county was doing it. Every person was doing it. I think people are starting to realise like that it has become political.
Absolutely. You know? I think we met James Lawless, as you know, last year, and we tried to reinforce that point, like just from, you know, a personal perspective. I'm chairman of my own club here. There's 21 members. So that's 21 members, and probably, you know, double that between voting age, teenage/adults and spouses. So that's a quite a big pull. Then you're going then to the next step, where as chairman you're sitting on Kildare Federation. So in North Kildare you're talking to other chairmen. So you've probably a little bit of influence on the bones of 150 people directly. Yeah. You know, and I think that voice has now been heard. I think that's the message, I think, and now it's up to us to go back to them, which I intend to do as well.
Absolutely.
Go back to them and say, now, you said you were going to do something here. What are you going to do for us? So I think Nisha Carroll, who's the local here, was very responsive. Bernard Durkin is another man. And both of them have actively come back and said, they'd be willing to help and get on board and do give a little bit of a dig out and push some of the projects and so on that were close to our hearts. So let's see, can they back it up now? Is the next thing?
Yeah, they've all made the promises. We'll see can they fulfill them. We'll push them to do it anyway.
You've created a document here for clubs around the country, which is very informative. Is there anything else you want to discuss on that, Richie?
I think we've hit on most of it. You know, as I said, it's pretty much a couple of counties would have been asking, you know, what's going on with the woodcock. Or the big question everyone wants to know: will we lose shooting the woodcock? You know, and for the last couple of years, that's the big question.
And this is going to reinforce that we shouldn't.
With the data we have, you'd like to think that they're not a bird that's under pressure, you know, and hunting doesn't play any pressure really on them, to be honest, you know, whereas other birds might buckle under the pressure of hunting, woodcock don't, you know, and that's stuff that has to come into account. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. last year we had a decisive decision which impacted a lot of hunters where we lost 4 birds off the OSO.
Yeah.
But like, if you sit down and use a science basis, I think we're in a good position with woodcock
to really fight that.
Yeah.
In terms of the actual shooting, if you're going out shooting woodcock, what cartridge is your go-to?
Oh, normally a 7.
7.
You know, a Desperante would be very good, and you know, it all depends. It all depends what cover I'm in or that. But RC Desperante are really, really good shell. Yeah. Now, if you're in heavier cover, you could go for the Desperante 9s, but they're my go-to. And then if I want pheasants, or you know, I might throw in a black gold 6 if they're a little bit further out. If I get, you know, just in case.
Yeah, I always have, because I always describe myself as a mediocre shot. So black gold is my go-to on pheasants, because it hides a lot of my my poor shooting. So as people get to see on a regular fucking basis. But yeah, that's good. So 7s. I'm going to start actively. I have a couple of little spots now based on what you're after telling me that I'm going to try and suss out and see. Can I rise a couple over the next couple of weeks? So that'll be a little bit of a challenge for me over the next couple of weeks. See, can I get a few woodcock in the bag this year? On top of everything else. Any plans for the next phase of research? What's your? I know you're extremely busy with this. I'm not saying you need any more work. What's the next phase of your work? What do you hope to do, or what do you hope to achieve next?
Next plan we have at the minute is we're actually stepping away from woodcock just for a month or two. This year we're going trapping ducks. So we have a swimming duck trap made, everything ready to go. We have ringers organised. We're involved with the Waterfowlers Network through Europe as well, and they have this project called Project Penelope. And what it is it's the same thing. It's putting rings on birds, and we have our own Project Penelope ring. It's a specific ring where obviously widgeon are the target species, but we will ring teal, pintail shoveler, whatever comes into the mallard. If they come into the trap and they're caught, we're going to ring them. And the whole idea is we want to see where they're moving. Like through the Waterfowlers Network at the minute, we've painted a really, really good picture of the migrations of widgeon. But the problem is everything is coming to Ireland. We've not gone out of it. So we want to turn around and show where the birds that are coming here are going back to, you know. And the more we can ring, the more we can tell what's happening. Like a small unknown fact is like a lot of woodcock would die from window strike, where they would hit sides of buildings and end up dead on the ground. And like we actually, from our ringing returns, we have a good few ringing returns from the Netherlands. So obviously they come in off of the sea, and then the high buildings catch them. You know, they can see through a window, they go to fly and bang into it. That's it. You know, and
instead of banning hunters, we need to ban buildings.
High buildings. We need to cut them down low.
Cut them down low.
And windows. There should be something on them.
Exactly.
But yeah, like that's the small things that we can paint. But yeah, the rest of this year now, obviously we'll still be doing the wing returns and all that. We'll be taking them in and going through them, and the bag returns will be still going. But the big project now is the Project Penelope, catching the widgeon if possible and ringing them, see where they go.
In terms of turning back that tide, with the species being removed, is that gone forever? Is it, in your opinion, should they all have come off?
No, they shouldn't have come off. No.
Shouldn't have come off.
Absolutely no. I think it was a rash measure. Like all we've looked for the whole way through this was science based.
Yeah.
You know.
So it was opportunistic.
One or two of them, they are in decline in states. The problem is, like, they're migratory birds. So like the woodcock, we have a resident population and we have a migratory population. And we're based on this. And we also have the flyway, which is the area where all the birds come. The woodcock fly along it, the ducks fly along it. So like, if the trends are up on the flyway, that means that there's a higher number of birds breeding. But they could be stopping into France and Spain and, you know, the Netherlands and all these in the UK before they come to us. So they could be short stopping. But by banning the hunting of them here, doesn't do any good. You know what I mean? Because we're still not going to implicate that flyway. The birds are still going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, it was contradictory, I think, to be honest. I think it was a bit harsh.
I think it was probably this is my opinion on it, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I think it was opportunistic. I think it was a jump on it and try and get to work around the fringes and get the ones they knew they wouldn't have got away with banning them all, but we'll take 4 off it. Jump on it and get them off the list, and then there won't be a huge furore about, because they'll still have another couple there, and then we can go back at them and take another couple off it, you know.
Yeah, well, like, that is the big worry of everybody, and me included, that, you know, well, there's 4 already gone. Will people come after any more? I'd like to think they wouldn't. Like, as I said, everything is science based. If they're not in decline, I can't see. If they're not threatened, they're not in decline. Like, if we go back to the red and the green and the amber list, like, a lot of these ducks are on it. But as I said to you already, we spoke about, like, Carlow and Kildare. There's no ducks in Carlow and Kildare.
According to that list.
According to these lists.
Yeah.
You know, but where we know there's widgeon, there's mallard, there's teal, you know, along with everything else in them counties. But the problem is they're just not being seen or being counted in them counties, which cause a problem. And that's why we pushed for our duck count before. That's why we're pushing for our bag returns, so we can look at our bag returns and see, oh, Jesus, there's 24 mallard after being seen in the middle of Kilkenny, or, you know, in Carlow, like, you know, and we can build on that. We can extrapolate that and say, well, there's actually a lot of mallard. You know, we did do that already. Pádraig Breen done that, to be fair, the game development officer, and, like, the population of mallard that we estimated was actually higher than what was NPWS had estimated in the whole of Ireland.
Wow.
Like, our harvest was bigger than the population that was here.
That they said was here originally.
Yeah.
So, in other words, we were after wiping out the whole entire population, according to them, in one hunting season, which we know is not possible.
Yeah.
Based on their data.
Yeah.
Which
so
was
all it was miscounting.
Yeah.
Pretty much. You know, it's something that can be sorted. But, like, as I said, as hunters, we don't want that kind of data either. So we need to say the birds are there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, we don't need lads coming in saying, well, I seen 5,000 mallards yesterday. You know, that doesn't do any good either. You need to be specific. You know, you go out on a normal day out, you meet 2 cock pheasants, 3 woodcock, 10 mallard, 10 teal, 5 snipe. That's it. Job done.
Bang it up. And then that way, I suppose, it also safeguards us then moving down the ladder then, in terms of, I know, snipe is probably one of the like, I love shooting snipe, or shooting at snipe would be the best way to describe my shooting at snipe. But brilliant bird, get up, you know, on the wing, and elusive. Are woodcocks similar in terms of the way they get up, or are they more, what would you say, are they more similar to pheasant in terms of the way they get up on the...
They would be in between, because normally what they'll do is they'll clear out of a bush and they'll get a straight drive, and they'll fly down a ditch and then out over a ditch or whatever. But, like, one thing that a lot of people don't realise with woodcock is they're a fierce bird to run. You know what I mean? Your dog could be trailing them for 5 minutes before you actually get them up. They're nearly as bad as a pheasant for running. When they're in cover, they'll run, you know.
Very good.
And before you flush them, but they wouldn't be as elusive now as a snipe flying.
Yeah.
They're very fast. There's no denying that, but, like, they just wouldn't have the same jinking left and right as a snipe would.
Yeah, it's probably is to that end. The one we flushed a couple of weeks ago, like that. We were after flushing a cock pheasant on that ditch only a couple of hours. We were making our way back down, and my dog was going back in, and she's only a young pup. I thought she was after picking up the scent of it was only one of the young cocks we released, and my dad didn't even take a shot at it. And I said, I fucking have to pick up the scent again on the cock pheasant. And with that, my dad was out the far side, and the woodcock got up, and, like, the speed was just unbelievable. You know how quickly, like, it broke. And like that, gone out of sight. But probably similar to the speed of the snipe. Not similar, but as you say rightly, halfway in between in terms of a pheasant getting up and the snipe getting up. Just zoom, gone. You don't have a huge amount of time.
Oh yeah, you have to be quick.
You want to be quick. Yeah,
especially if you're hunting cover, if you're hunting bog or whatever, you need to be fast.
You need to be fast, yeah. Good
you know,
stuff.
that's why a lot of lads are using the 9s and that in the cover, just get that bit more spread. Yeah, to give them the better chance, you know. But they are a quick bird. Look, like, you know, as they are called in Europe, like the Queen of the Forest.
The forest.
You know, they need that respect too. Like, they are realistically, they're our number one game bird. You know,
because they're native. They're in huge numbers. Well, huge numbers,
Yeah,
contrary to what we've been told. And we need to obviously look after them. Springers or pointers? Are you a Springer or a pointer man?
I used to be always a pointer man, but my habitat has changed, so I'm Springer only now. But like we're unique in that way too. Like when I go to the meetings in Europe, and they're all using pointing dogs, and some setters, they're only kind of getting into setters mainland Europe now, and we'd say, oh, we use Springers, and they're like, what? Oh, we flush them, and they're like, what? No, we, all they use is pointers and setters, but it's their terrain that they're hunting on. Like, we need the heavy cover here, and you need the Springers.
You need the Springers to go to.
But I still love pointers, to be honest. I'm an English pointer man all my life. And always keep one.
How many dogs do you have?
Too many.
Too many. Go on, tell us.
7.
7. Jesus.
But you always need a few. You need backup. You always need backup.
And have you a go-to? Is there a favourite one in there, or are they all as...
There's always a favourite.
Yeah.
But they all have a job through, and like that. Anyone that keeps a couple of dogs that does a good bit of hunting, you always have one coming on. Yeah. Because you never know it.
I was talking to my mum was down here yesterday. Christy Malloy here, who was she dropped in a set of scissors for me to sharpen for a relation of his, but he was chatting about his own Springer, and she's pushing on, and he says the first time I don't have something coming on behind her, and he says my daughter's now at me, and he's gone mad into the deer shooting, and he's probably the last conversation I think we had on one of the podcasts was rough shooting versus deer shooting, and which one. And obviously you get at certain times and certain stages of your life you get drawn towards one. I'm probably in the middle. I just love my rough shooting. I love the hardship, and there's nothing better on Christmas and the wind and so even the rain. I like it. That getting out and coming home after it and feeling like you've got a good old push through, and you're fit for a couple of pints or in front of the fire and feel like you've done something, and rather than sitting up and watching TV and eating copious amounts of Christmas pudding and so on. But I think that's the conundrum, and I've only started to train a dog this year for the first time, as you probably know. So it's going okay. Probably wouldn't be a patch on any of your dogs, but
you're learning and the dog is learning at the same time.
It's more so. I think I said it, and you hit the nail on the head there. It's more me being trained by the dog than the dog being trained by me, and trying to figure out its habits. I was out the other day, and this is what I was saying to Rob. It's like to have Springers in my the way I describe them is like to have like an ADHD. You know what I'm saying? And each one of them has a little tick or a little tell. Yeah. Do you know? So it's trying to. I'm figuring that out now. I'm getting to know her. When she's on, even my pointer. I've one pointer out there as well. And she's the same. She does a little kind of, before she points, she goes around a little circle and then points, So I know when she starts to do a little bit of a jig, I don't ask me why. I got her late in her life. She was a year old when I got her, but I do put out a couple of birds, have a few in the freezer, and try and get them on the trail. And like that, last couple of times, she does this little circular thing and then points. So get the gun ready. Get the gun ready when that happens. Come here, Richie. That's over an hour. It went like a flash. Thank you so much for coming down. I think this will be very informative. I know it's been for me. I hope it's for our listeners as well. You've taught me, I tell you, a lot about woodcock that I certainly didn't know. And we'd love to have you on again.
No bother at all. And look, if there's anyone out there that wants to know more, I'm always at the end of the phone. Or listen, if lads want to get involved, you know what I mean? If anyone wants to know more or get involved in any way, just give me a shout. There's no problem.
All your details are up on the NARGC website.
Yeah, they're on the back of the bag returns and any of the paperwork that's involved.
You'll find you there.
I'm doing my name's on it.
Are you on Facebook, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook, yeah. I don't really
interact with it.
Yeah, more my hunting pages, that's what I'm on it
for. Yeah.
See what's going on around the place.
So if you have any questions further to what we're after discussing there, and thanks for a million, we've some leaflets here. I'll be taking a couple of screenshots and popping these up as well. Continue success. Keep doing what you're doing. It's guys like yourself who are probably, and I don't mean to be blowing smoke, but this is the kind of the unsung hero element of all this. It's everyone. We all enjoy going out with the gun, walking the dog, and that's the fun part. What you're doing, I'm sure, can be tedious and meticulous at times, and probably feels like you're banging your head off a stone wall. But continued success. Keep doing what you're doing, and the likes of yourself and James, Porrig as well. We've had Porrig on before. Do Trojan work. Probably impacts on your hunting no end. And as I say, it's we're all indebted to you, because if it wasn't for the likes of yourselves, we probably wouldn't have fuck all shooting to be doing. They'd have it all gone by now. So keep doing what you're doing, my man.
No bother at all. Thanks
a million, pal.
Thanks very much.